I'm Jan Hopkins, and I'm here with Tom Blair, a successful businessman and author of the best-selling book, Poor Richard's America. What would Ben say? And he's really referring to Ben Franklin. So, Tom, welcome.
Thank you.
And what would Ben Franklin say about what's going on in our country today? What would he be concerned about?
Well, first of all, let me say, I think he'd be absolutely proud of America. He'd be proud of Americans and America, and said we had a very benevolent manner. His biggest concern, obviously, would be the deficit of America.
Because he was somebody that didn't like debt, right?
Ben was very, very frugal. Penny saved is a penny earned. He quit school at 10, worked extremely hard for 30 years, and created financial security for himself. And he would look at America and say, I think you need to do the same thing. And
he was a businessman just like you are, right?
No, I would never compare myself in any way to Ben Franklin.
But he was an entrepreneur, you were an entrepreneur, right?
Yes, yes, yes. I skipped the part about the Declaration of Independence, though.
Right, he was pretty successful there. Who in the world is like Ben Franklin, in your view, today?
Jan, I think that's probably like asking who's like Leonardo da Vinci today. No one's like Ben Franklin, and you said it, he was an entrepreneur, but then he became a notable scientist, then he became a notable statesman, then it became an ambassador, and in his spare time, he was a man about town. So I don't think there's anybody today that's like Ben Franklin.
And if he came back, what would he say about our media today? He had his own publication in his day.
You referenced the Pennsylvania Gazette, and one of the things Ben was proud about is that the only thing that he would print was absolute truth. I think Ben would be concerned that some of the folks in the media, the news media, really don't straddle an issue. They tend to kick it from one side to the other, and perhaps if they were a judge in a court, they would sentence the accused before the jury rendered a verdict.
Would Ben Franklin support health care reform, in your view?
Yes, I think he would support it with a concern. Ben Franklin helped to found and fund the first hospital in Philadelphia. On the other side, I think he would say Medicare probably can't afford to spend $500,000 for the last month in every American's life.
And these are issues that voters are going to be talking a lot about in the campaigns in the next year or so. What would Ben Franklin think about the candidates that we're hearing about these days?
I think he would stand back and really probably not express his views. What he, I think, would vote for in terms of a candidate was somebody that took a middle of the road and was not extreme. And one of Ben Franklin's hallmarks is he helped to bring the Continental Congress together and look for compromise. So he would look for candidates, I think, that were willing to support compromise.
Ben Franklin was a leader. When you look out in the scene today, do you see very many leaders?
I think you see a lot of followers because there's a perception to become elected, you need to follow the polls. So numbers of platforms are a matrix of what people perceive or the voters' wants. And one of Ben Franklin's quotes that is literally never quoted is, to serve the public well and to please all the citizens at the same time is impossible.
You're a pilot. Let's talk a little bit about air safety. Are we safer today than we were right after 9/11?
I would say you'd have to say we're safer. I would also say it's to an extreme, meaning if I'm pushing my 99-year-old mother through security in her wheelchair, do we really need to have her come out of the wheelchair so she can be scanned? If one of my kids is taking one of my 16 grandchildren through security, do we really need to take the 2-month-old through a scanning process? I don't think so.
And what about the economy? You're an entrepreneur, have started publicly traded companies. What do you see out there in the economy? Do you think that things are getting better?
You'd have to say things are getting better. It's an uneven getting better. For the top half of the country, things are obviously getting better just because corporations are more profitable. There's a lot of folks in middle America that are still struggling. I was relieved a little bit last night to see on the media that GM is hiring. And I think over the next 2 years, you'll see a gradual recovery across the broad spectrum of America.
And in terms of Ben Franklin and the fact that your book of What Would Ben Say, basically, is a bestseller, are people eager to hear from somebody that has a lot of common sense like Ben Franklin?
Yes, I think quite often media tends to focus on the extremes, whether it be the extremes liberal or the extreme conservatives. Ben was a middle of the road fellow, And the book speaks to his views, which were views of middle of the road and compromise. And I would quickly add, if you had to classify Ben today, he would be classified as a bleeding heart conservative.
And what do you mean by that?
Well, Ben was very, very frugal. He worked extremely hard, but he used immense amounts of his net worth to help other folks out. I mentioned he helped to found the first hospital, also the first library, fire department. Ben put back into his community what he made.
What would Ben Franklin think of the girls on Jersey Shore?
I think Ben preferred women that could speak 2 or more languages versus women that had 2 or more tattoos.
Ben Franklin, well-rounded individual, and we're still hearing from him today. And thanks very much, Tom Blair, for joining us, the author of the bestseller, Poor Richard's America. Thanks for joining us. I'm Jan Hopkins.